Hey, it's TDA and welcome back to Satisfactory. Last time around we replaced this starting facility, or at least this kind of hub where we had all the main things that we need in order to progress into the game, with a lot more opposing building over here, our new main storage facility. Now I have to be honest, I'm kind of gonna miss this, but right now this is kind of outdated. It doesn't really make sense to walk back and forth from our main storage to this place every time in order to progress, so we're probably going to have to relocate this. Now, over the last few days, I have been playing with my new main storage, and I also noticed that there were a couple of ways we should be upgrading that. So other than pimping my ride, I also pimped my storage facility a little bit, so let's dive in and talk about that. So I've made a couple of additions to the storage hub, both on the inside as well as the outside, but let's start with the inside first. Over here on the left, we now have a MAM and a crafting facility, and the crafting facility is, of course, the crafting bench, I should say, is, of course, very straightforward. We have all these base materials around us that we can use to pretty much produce all the more advanced items that we have currently unlocked, that we don't have automated just yet. So, for example, let's say heavy modular frames. If I need a couple of those to make a manufacturer, I can just grab the materials and plug away at my crafting bench over here. Now, of course, we're going to use this as little as possible, which will bring me to one of the outside improvements that we've made. But before we do that, let me show you what is on the roof. Now, if we take this up, and by the way, if someone can ever explain to me why my boots are flying on the outside of the tube, I'll be very much obliged. But we have the main hub now up here. Now I really like this position because it's kind of on the side of the elevator. It's kind of symmetric from this point of view where we have the hub on that side, and I kind of want to place a radar tower on the right, which we'll get to in one of the next episodes. But for now we have this hub over here. This allows the little drone to fly off without being obstructed by anything. It makes sense to have everything centralized. Basically anything we need in order to progress into the game is now on the roof over here. And if we kind of edge to the sides over here, without falling off preferably, you can now see we have this huge gap where once our main facility used to be. Now, in order to actually move all that stuff from where it was to where it now needs to go and put it back into storage, there's one little inside trick that I want to show you. Now, I don't know what's going on with the creature spawning in this particular patch, but Bob has now somehow made its way all the way upstairs on that platform. Yeah, okay. So, we have the dump over here, and I don't think I actually touched on that. So the idea behind this is actually that I have this storage facility over here that just feeds into our main line, and you can see it down here doing its thing. I just dumped a whole batch of silicon in there. It feeds all the way to the front into the main line and then combines with the incoming main line and basically makes sure that everything we dump in here goes straight into the sorting system and then in the storage system. And by doing that, that will actually make sure that we don't have to carry anything around that we don't want to carry around, and we can just dump it in here. So let's say I'm like, I don't need that many of these reinforced iron plates, and I also do not need as many iron plates, whatever. I can just dump it in here. It will take a while for this to drain, especially considering the fact that we currently have kind of a max throughput on our main belt already. But the idea is that once we come back here, we just dump some stuff in here that we want to get sorted. Then we leave again and go make some building, and that will take so long that by the time we get back, this will be completely empty. So it's just a thing of convenience. You don't have to use it. You can also just delete the items you don't want. But if you don't want anything to go to waste, you dump it in the dump. And basically anything that doesn't fit into the storage area will get sorted. Now there is a problem with that, and that's actually the reason that I initially put down these boxes at the start, and I'll show you that. Now before we get in that, this is exactly why I made all these windows in my buildings, because I really like the fact that we can see the planets flying by, the sky outside when it's dark, or when it's light for that matter. It's really awesome. Side note, did I just not pay attention to the sky during the last few weeks of playing this, or did this completely change? I don't remember the moons being this menacing. They are kind of scaring me, to be honest. Nor do I remember the sky being so freakishly beautiful. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's up with that. I'm not sure if we can see it at the moment, but I actually remember seeing some sort of Milky Way type of thing in the sky as well. So, I don't know. Let me know in the comments, is this new or did I just not pay attention before? Anyway, let's get back to it. Behold, the sink of doom. And no, it's not that dramatic at all, but I just had to pull in the lights because it's dark and I want you guys to be able to see what I'm talking about. So, we have a problem over here. If you just dump anything in the dump, assuming that you don't have every single item in the game sorted to a box, which you could, at least pretty close to it, depending on where you want to go. But to be honest, I don't recommend doing that for the simple reason that there's a lot of items that you probably don't care about having in a separate storage unit. But that does mean that you do need to be a little bit careful about what you put in the box, because anything you put in the box that doesn't go into a storage unit will go into the sink. By itself, that is not a problem. However, there are a couple of items that can't actually go into the sink. So for example, you see some dead animals over here, and I'm trying to get sorted into the sink. That doesn't work, the sink doesn't accept it, so now this line is backed up. That in turn will mean that at some point the entire belt will back up. You can already see it starting to happen over here. So the belt towards the sink is starting to be backed up. Everything before that slowly starts to get backed up as well. And then at some point the entire line will start backing up, which means your storage units are no longer being filled. So that is a problem. The solution is very simple. Just put stuff in the storage boxes. Basically anything organic doesn't go into the sink. And generally speaking, I just want to make sure that some things like the slugs, for example, don't go into the sink. I'm not entirely sure if they actually can go in the sink. I assume they can't. But if they can, I would be very sad if I accidentally threw in all my yellow power slugs in there or something. So basically, those few items that you typically don't have too much of anyway, just put them in a box over here. Worth noting is actually that you can actually dump your tickets and have those go into the sink. I don't recommend doing that, but again, that's one of those items that you definitely want to make sure you're storing somewhere safe and that you don't put into the dump, because you will be very, very sad. And as we stare at this beautiful Milky Way, I would like to remind you, if you want to help me out, just like the video or subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and it will definitely help out the channel and make this more visible to others. So, please do so if you haven't done so already. Now, getting back to the actual building, remember this little side facility that I built a couple of episodes ago where I was theorizing that that might be a more efficient way to play the game? I still think it's not. But there is a use, especially if you now have a main storage facility going on. Right now what I'm doing over here is that I have a couple of facilities set up to produce some of the items that I haven't actually automated yet. So the oscillator, for example, over here, the heavy modular frames over here. Now I've boosted up the production quite a bit. Actually, I might be able to put in a few more of these accelerators over here. But anyway, the idea behind that is to make sure we're producing the items that we haven't yet unlocked, even if it's just at a trickle speed. This is something like 2 per minute or something, 3 per minute thanks to the boost. It's not going to be a lot, but at least make sure that we have some of that production going while we're waiting for everything else to be automated. Now, the idea behind that is that because we have a main storage next to this facility anyway, it's very easy to just grab whatever you need, dump half a storage unit full of things like screws and modular frames and things like that, get this production going, then actually go and build the automated facility, and then when you get back you can tear this down and replace it with whatever new item you then probably have unlocked and start producing some of that. Side note, I have so many Bobs over here. There's like Bob over here, and this is maybe Bob's uncle or whatever. I don't know, but are they like reproducing themselves? I have a feeling I have way more creatures in my game now than I had before. But anyway, the trick behind this is not necessarily this, but it's the feeding back into the main facility. So what I'm doing here is I am producing those items that I just described. One item that's actually worth pointing out that I think is especially useful to set up in this way is the solid biofuel that we're producing over here. So I have 2 of these boxes, one for leaves, one for wood. They are then being produced into biomass and then into solid biofuel, and then being outputted back onto a belt. Now for every single item that we're currently producing in this manner, everything is being outputted on this belt and being merged into a single belt, kind of like our main line that we have going in the main line that's completely automated. And then everything is feeding back into the main line. And apparently I forgot to remove that biological item in our sink, because this very nicely demonstrates what happens if you do that. Everything starts backing up, including your main line. So this line is supposed to be moving, of course, and that will be moving as soon as I make sure that the sink is not actually blocked anymore. Almost sounds like a household chore, having to unblock the sink. But anyway, yeah, this really works very well, I find. And I really recommend you doing this. And once again, just combine all these items into a single belt main line. Now you do want to make sure you're not overproducing too much. Something I'm probably doing right over here with all these screws. I probably don't need that many screws. The only reason I built this little screw facility over here is because I didn't actually have a stockpile of screws anymore, and we do need that for the heavy modular frames. But I'm probably overdoing it right now, or what I probably should have done is actually feed this line into the heavy modular frames to kind of semi-automate that. But that's something that I can take care of off screen. But anyway, make sure that you keep your lines unblocked, and then even though this will probably clog your line a little bit, because right now our main line is already at full capacity and basically anything else that we put on it is over capacity, that doesn't really matter as long as it's still moving. Any items that you don't need will be synced, every item that you do need will get in there, and once again, the amount of time you spend in this game is so long that you probably won't notice. It is very much worth it though, to make sure that you're not overproducing items on your main belt that you don't actually need to have on your main belt. So for example, my problem right now, other than the fact that my belt is not moving, is that I'm currently producing something like 80 concrete per minute, which is way more than I'm actually going to be using. I mean, you need a lot of concrete, but you don't need 80 per minute. And if I would reduce that to something like 20 or 30, that would save a lot of space on my main belt without me really noticing any of that at all. So the really easy way to do that is just have a splitter at the start of your facility and just feeding it off into a sink, or just not overproducing that to begin with, or putting it on one of the side belts and make sure that you're using it into a different facility somewhere else. That's what the 3 lines on the sides are for. Or, like I'm doing right now, I am producing a huge amount of Caterium wire, but we actually don't need that at the moment for anything else, so we're just feeding it into a sink over here. This is just a temporary sink, but these types of temporary units make it a lot easier to make sure your storage unit is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Horizons averted, the belt is running again. So guys, I hope you really like this short overview of how to further expand your main storage unit, kind of have a single facility on the side to do all the intermediate stuff until you actually automate it. Next time I'm going to take a deep dive into the new radar towers, or at least they're not new, but as far as I understand they have been changed quite a bit, and I want to kind of walk you through how I will be planning the next few steps I'm going to take through this game. Remember, this is my first playthrough, so anything I'm doing for the first time. So you're very much welcome to join me on the ride when we are going to explore the radar towers. Thank you for joining this one. If you stayed to the end, you are awesome, and I will catch you in the next one.